Good day, leaders. Hi, I'm Dr. Sujay Walia from the Influence Hub, and today we're going to be talking about performance management, how to obtain optimal performance from your team members. What are the steps that you should take? How should you interact with your team members? What are the expectations? What are some of the obstacles that you may face in the performance management process? And why is it even important? So we're going to talk about that today. Let's get to it. So before we start, I'd like you to answer the following questions. I want you to think about these questions and write down your answers. What is performance management? Who is it for? Why do you do it? Is it important? Why is it important? What is the intended outcome of performance management and what is involved in the process? I want you to stop the recording, write down the answers to these questions, give it some real thought and see where you are and how you feel about the process and what you think about the process. So take some time. I'm going to pause for about 5 seconds and allow you to think about this and answer these questions. Pause the recording. So let's talk about what performance management is. It's the process of coordinating and implementing individual goals that align with and support the organizational goals. And we do this through the planning, monitoring, reviewing, evaluating, and rewarding of performance. So this is what performance management is. It's coordinating and implementing goals that align with and support the organizational goals, what the organization needs to get done, the larger picture. Now, who is performance management for? Is it just for some? Absolutely not. Performance management is for everybody, including your CEO. It starts from the top and it goes all the way down to the lowest level of the organization in terms of hierarchy. Performance management is for everybody. Is it important? Yes, it is important. Why? Why do you think it's important? Well, when persons are not performing optimally, are not doing what they need to do, then the organization doesn't hit its overall goals. And so we have a problem in terms of whether the organization is doing what it needs to do. If we're not managing performance, then persons don't know that they're not performing in a way that's optimal. They're not doing the things that they need to do. And so we need a system, a process to help us to let persons know this is our expectation. This is what we expect. And we'll give you feedback along the way about how you're doing and some encouragement and maybe some training, maybe some mentoring, maybe some coaching to support you so that you can achieve your individual goals and ultimately so that the organization can achieve the organizational goals. So that is why it's important. What is the intended outcome? For us to have a high performing, high functioning organization and team. Right? So this is the big picture of performance management. Is it a smooth ride? I don't know. What are some of the challenges of the performance management process? I want you again to stop the recording and think about that. What are some of the challenges of the performance management process? What are some of the things that stop you, that cause your team to not do well, that cause individuals on your team to not perform as expected? What are some of those challenges? What are some of the challenges for you as the leader in giving feedback to your team members? Stop the recording and write those answers down. Okay, so let's talk about them. Let's talk about 5 challenges. Employees, your team members want to know, what am I supposed to be doing? As simple as that may sound, you'd be surprised how many persons don't know what they're actually supposed to be doing. They don't know how it relates to anything in the organization. If they do actually know what their task is, they don't know how it fits into the larger picture. It's like they're robots. They don't know. They don't know how well they're required to do it. What does cleaning mean? Let's use that for an example. Does it mean that I just wipe the table? Or does it mean that if I see a stain, I go and get something and I get that stain out of the table? How well am I required to do it? What do you think of my performance? Most employees don't know what their leaders think of their performance until their appraisal, which is usually annually, or until they're about to be fired, and then they're all shocked. They didn't know that they weren't doing well. So what do you think of my performance? How will I be rewarded if I do a good job? What's in it for me? What's in it for me? The flip side of that is, if I don't do a good job, are there any consequences? Do I lose my job? Is it business as usual? They don't know. You do, and you have organizations where persons are doing a terrible job and they're still in their positions. So how will I be rewarded if I do a great job? And if I don't do a great job, what's the consequence? And finally, they want to know, how can I improve my performance? What can I do to move from good to great? What can I do to move and to be better, to be the best? If I'm already good, how can I be great? How can I be the best at what I'm doing? What other skills do I need to learn? Maybe it's more of an attitude. What do I need to change? Employees need to know that. And when they don't know these things, this becomes very challenging for them. Very, very challenging. And it becomes challenging for you as the leader, because now you're sharing with them that their performance is good or bad, and they're clueless about all of what you're saying because they didn't know these things. And you can't wait until the day, the appraisal, the evaluation, to be sharing this information. So let's go back to our definition of performance management. The process of coordinating and implementing individual goals that align with and support organizational goals through the planning, monitoring, reviewing, evaluating, and rewarding of performance. So we have 5 things. And I have a simple, no pun intended, well, pun intended actually, play on how we can do performance management. It's not mine. I borrowed it from someone. So, as I said, it's simple, right? In the planning stage, we set expectations. What do we expect? What do we require of you? And we invite our team members to commit to that process. And we call that goal setting. In planning, it's S&I, setting expectations, stating what the goals are, and inviting team members to commit to that. So this is the planning stage. And then we have the monitoring stage, where we are measuring the progress of our team members. How are they doing? What are they doing right? What are they not doing so well? And we provide feedback. This is the review process, where we are telling them, this is what you are doing well. This is what you are not doing so well. We're letting them know how they can change, how they can improve what they're doing that's great, and that they should just continue doing. We're providing that feedback. You have the link to consequences, which is what I would call the rewarding. So let's skip a second and go to the evaluate effectiveness. This is when it's now the big appraisal time, when you are measuring their progress in an evaluation of their performance, to say, okay, we had some conversations about this in the feedback, and I told you this is what was working, this is what wasn't working so well, and I gave you some tips and you committed to doing certain things. Now we're evaluating your performance over a particular period of time to see, what did you do well? What did you not do so well, maybe, and how we can improve performance. And then we have link to consequences, which is the rewarding part of the process. And this is, if you do well, what do you get as an encouragement, as a booster for your performance? And if you didn't do so well, what's the consequence? What's going to happen to you? So let's dig into this a little deeper. Let's start with planning. So your team members, they come into the organization, they're a part of your team, and they're on a path, and there are so many different ways, different routes that they could take, right? So what does planning involve? What must be achieved? What are the business goals that the employees need to meet? And how are these goals translated into employee goals for them? What's the standard that they have to meet? What's the level that they have to achieve? What are the competencies that they need? What development is required for them? What are the outcomes in terms of not just their technical skills, but also their behavior? So when we're talking about planning, we start off with goal setting, and we believe in setting SMART goals. So let's discuss what are the SMART goals that we can set for our team members. So specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, time-bound. I mean, SMART is in the industry for so long, I'm sure just about everybody knows what it is right now. But specific, what am I to achieve? It has to be detailed, measurable. How will I know I've crossed the finish line? How will I know I've achieved the goal that I've done? It must be something that I can measure. Achievable. Is it realistic for me? For me, the individual, the team member, to achieve it, not for anybody else. Maybe somebody else can achieve it, but based on my skills, is it achievable for me? Is it something that is realistic that I can achieve? Relevant. How does this goal relate to the big picture, the vision, the strategy of the organization? How is it relevant to the company, this goal that you're asking me to achieve? And time bound. When must it be done by? What are the time restrictions within which this goal must be achieved? So let's look at an example. So let's use me. Let's use my broad goal and say my broad goal is that I want to grow my business. That's not very specific. That's a very large, big, and broad goal. But a SMART goal would be I will sign 3 new clients for my consulting business during the period August to October 2021. Is it specific? Yes, I'm saying I need to sign 3 new clients for my consulting business. Is it measurable? Yes, 3 new clients need to be signed in 3 months. So in 3 months, we'll check to see, do I have 3 new clients that are signed up for the business? Is it achievable? Is it something that I can do, that I have the skill set to do? Yes, I can ask for referrals, I can network, I can advertise, I can go out there and achieve the business. It's within my skill set, my abilities. Is it relevant? Well, my broad goal is to grow my business. Signing new clients produces revenue and leads to growth of the business. And is it time bound? Yes. We've said during the period August to October 2021, in those specific 3 months, this will have to be done. So if I do it in November or December, I've missed the goal because I've done it outside of the time period within which I've set the target. So SMART, specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, time-bound. Those are the types of goals that you want to set for your team members. So they don't even need to check in with you as their leader. They can look at their goal and measure it themselves and know whether or not they're achieving their targets. So what I'd like you to do right now is to write one objective for one of your team members. Think about someone on your team and write an objective using SMART. How does it align with the vision of the organization? That would be the relevant part of it. What's the specific thing that you'd like them to achieve? What's the time period within which you'd like it to be done? Is it achievable given the skill set that they have? You have to think about each individual. What John may be able to do, Mary may not be able to do, and what Mary may be able to do, Anne may not be able to do. So you have to think about who is this goal for, and do they have the skills required to achieve that goal? That's the achievable part of it. When do you need it done? That's the time-bound part of it. So SMART. Stop the recording and write a SMART goal for one of your team members. All right, So you have that goal, and I want you to go and discuss that goal with your team member. We're going to move now from planning to monitoring. So we've done the setting expectations. Once you've written your goals, you invite your team members to, and you discuss the goal with that team member. And you get their feedback, their thoughts on whether they think the goal is achievable. What are their thoughts? What are their objections? You also want the goal to be a stretch goal, something that they have to work towards, something that is not just, oh my goodness, this is so easy, and they'll finish it in 1 month instead of 3. You want to give them stretch goals, goals that will help to grow them as individuals and grow their skill set as well. You invite your team member to look at these goals and to agree to do these things. You want their commitment. So that's the S, that's the I. Setting expectations, inviting commitment. That all comes under planning. Let's now talk about monitoring or measuring progress. So you're observing the team and you're journaling their achievement and challenges and thinking about, does anything need to change? What's the level of performance that I'm looking at in each team member? Is it above average? Is it average? Is it under average? And then what you want to do is track the progress of the goal that is expected. You know what that goal is. You know how to measure it. Are they on target to achieving that goal? And this is all a part of the monitoring process. So why do we write down these things? Why do we have these conversations? Because one of the things that you know is that as we get into doing things, we can't trust our memory to record and to remember everything, right? Yes, we might remember the successes, but we're not going to remember the problems. And that's why I'm going to talk about it a little more, is journal, write things down, log them in a spreadsheet, in a book, somewhere, so that you don't forget. Because if you're waiting until the evaluation, which is maybe a year down the road, to remember all the things that happened, believe me, some memories are great, but you're going to forget some things. So I really want you to journal things, write them down. And I want to just bring home a point really strongly when I say this. This is not a book of wrongdoings. It's not a book of, gotcha, you did this wrong. Actually, what you really want to do is to try and catch them in the act of doing great things. You want to catch them when they're performing well. And yes, it doesn't happen all the time, but as much as possible, that's what you want to be recording. And yes, there are persons who are not doing things well, and you want to record that. But what I also want to say to you in this progress journal, and notice I use the word progress because that's what you want to be talking about, their development, their growth. I want you to include as much detail as possible. You write the date when things happen, the time that it happened, the action that the individual took, and what resulted from that action. I implore you, I encourage you, I urge you, state only facts. When you're doing these things, our opinion is not what matters here. We all have biases. We have biases as individuals, or team members have their own biases, and we want to keep the conversation free and clear of biases. And when you stick to the facts and state only facts, you help to remove that bias from the discussion, right? So you stick to the facts. What happened and what was the consequence of this action? What was the result of this action? State only the facts. And when you have observed this behavior and you've noted, and maybe it happened once, maybe it happened twice, you want to have dialogue with your team members. You want to review, you want to give them feedback. So what your goal is as the leader of the team is to help your team members to take that dart and to hit a bullseye, to achieve their goal, to exceed their goal. right? So how do you help your team to achieve their target? What are the skills that need to be upgraded? What tools will be used to upgrade your employee skills and improve their performance? These are some of the things that I want you to be thinking about as you're going through the journal, as you're having dialogue with your team members. When will the development occur? Remember, we in our observation, in our monitoring process, we are noticing things that are happening and we're making notes of it. Then we need to have dialogue with them. But before we have dialogue with them, we should think through, if they're not doing something well, if they're not on target to achieve the goal, when will the development occur? How can I enhance? How can I enable an improved performance in my team members? What are some of the things that I can do? Is it that they require training? Is it that they require coaching? What specifically do they need? And how can I, as the leader of this individual, help them, get them back on track to achieve that goal? And why is that important? Because if I am successful, only if my team is successful. So I'll say that again. I am successful if and only if my team is successful. If my team is not doing well, I cannot say that I'm successful. My success is then me probably doing their work, and that's not my role. My role is not to do the work of my team members. I have other things for which I'm responsible. So we need to ensure that the team is successful in order for us to be successful. So we've made our notes, we've written them down. Now we need to have dialogue with our team members. We need to review the process, have open conversation with them. That's what all that chatter is about in that middle image. And we need to speak to what is the action that you took, and this is the effect of that action, and we have a conversation about it. A conversation. And what you're saying to your team members is, this is the big goal, the SMART goal that we have discussed, that you have agreed to do. And I'm giving you that information. Remember, we said some of the things that the employee wants to know at the beginning of the PowerPoint is, how am I doing? How can I do better? Okay, this is my observation of what you did. This is the result of that action. This is how you are doing relative to the goal that you're supposed to be achieving. What are some of the things that you can do differently? And how can you do this better? And we do this over and over and over again, right? What is the progress against the existing objective? Where there's concern, this is what we're sharing. And where there's praise, shower them with praise. Let them know that they're doing well and you're proud of them. And if they continue on that path, they're going to hit their targets. They're going to do well. If you're seeing that they're doing things, but they're probably not prioritizing things, then you need to have that conversation about them. How can you prioritize certain actions over others in a bid to help you to get closer to your goal? And then we have agreed actions. What is it that we are going to agree on together as your way forward? And maybe there are things that change while we are mid-year towards our goal, and there's a change. For example, we had COVID in the middle of the year, and literally economies stopped and there were lockdowns and things like that. Those kinds of things have real implications for objectives, for goals of organizations. And so goals may have to be revised based on changes in the markets, changes in the economy. And so that's another conversation that you would have to have with your team members. Are they still expected to reach those goals that were there pre-shutdown, pre-COVID? What does that mean? And if they are still expected to do it, what does that require of you as a leader to ensure that your team has the resources, that they're equipped, that they're prepared, that they are in the right frame of mind in order to achieve those goals? How do you engage them? What's the kind of conversation that you have with them? Those are very important things, because now they're working with a very different scenario from when they first started, and you have to help them to adjust to this new scenario. Okay, So we are reviewing their progress, we've monitored it, and now we're having conversation with them about it. And in this, whether it is a formal or an informal coaching session, one of the things that I always encourage leaders to do is to write things down. Remember, I spoke about memory loss a little earlier? Exactly. It is exactly for that reason. You're not going to remember everything. Your team members are not going to remember everything. And so I encourage persons to just jot down what was the nature of the conversation. And this is not just for you. I encourage you to share this with your team member as well and say, this is our conversation. It wasn't a formal coaching session, but this is what we had dialogue about and what we agreed to as our next steps. And maybe they don't remember the conversation going that way, and you'd want to have that feedback, because one of the things you want to ensure is that what you think your team members are understanding from the dialogue is exactly what they're understanding from it. And when they see it in writing from you in a coaching log, then they will know that this is the expectation, and or they'll clarify and say, that's not what I took away from it. And then you know that there was clearly a misunderstanding in what you had said and what was understood, and then you can clear that up and have everybody being on the same page about it. So the coaching log helps with that as well. You have that dialogue and all parties agree to it. In this way, especially as you get to your evaluation stage, you can look back and you can say, I had this dialogue with Anne, and we had this dialogue in September, and in October I noticed marked improvement in her performance. And you can see the progress, the growth of your team members as you go through the process, which is what performance management is about. It's helping your team members to grow, to be better, to do better, right? So we have the coaching log that records how we interacted with our team members and what was the outcome of that. And then we get to the evaluation process. This is the appraisal, when now you're, for lack of a better word, grading the performance. So we don't want this evaluation to be tense and persons are nervous about it because they're not sure how it's going to go. Team members are terrified when they have to be evaluated. Why should they be? If you are doing your performance management correctly, team members know exactly what's going to happen in that appraisal, in that evaluation process. They know what's going to happen. They know the conversation because you've been having consistent dialogue, feedback with your team members, whether it's on a weekly basis, every 2 weeks, monthly, whatever it is. The more frequent, the better, but they know where they fall relative to their goals. And when you are having this dialogue with them, it's not going to be a surprise, like, what are you talking about? Really? And then there's this shock and persons can't believe. No, they will know. And especially if the goals are smart from the onset, then they will know for sure what these goals are, what the expectation was, what is required of them, and how they were supposed to do better and how they can continue to do better. Also, when you're doing your performance appraisal, it doesn't even matter if it's the CEO. Everybody has room for growth. And maybe it's not a performance improvement plan, maybe it's a development plan. What other aspect of me can I develop in order to contribute to this organizational vision, in order to contribute to the growth of the organization? I don't think that there's anybody who knows everything. I know I certainly don't, even with my PhD, right? So everybody can grow, everybody can learn, and so everybody should be on a development plan. But for those persons who aren't achieving their goals, then they go on what we call a performance improvement plan. How can we improve our performance? How can we do better? And so the appraisal is also to talk about, what have I learned during this process, and how will I implement the change, the new things? That's what the evaluation, the appraisal is. On a scale of whatever the scale is, 1 to 5 or 1 to 10 or whatever it is, however it is that you measure performance, where did I fall? Am I doing really well? Am I just average there, or am I below. If I'm doing really well, then development of other aspects to grow me as an individual and maybe to promote me to a new position is in order. But if I'm average or below, then it's more, how can I improve the performance? How can I help this person to move up the ladder at a steady and good pace and be up there with the high performers, the high performing team, the rest of the high performing team? So that's what we want to look at in our evaluation. And when we do that evaluation, that appraisal, we know where we fall. And so we have to link that to consequences. So this is the rewarding part. What does my performance merit? In some cases, like it or not, it might require dismissal. No matter, we've been doing the performance management, we've been working with you, we've been training you, we've been coaching you, we've been mentoring you. This job is perhaps not for you. You're not up to what is required in this team. And maybe in another organization or on another team, this individual may really perform better. We have to face the cold, brutal facts of where the team member is and if that team member is really a good fit for this team. So what does the performance merit? Hopefully, we're working with high-performing team members. The training, the coaching, the mentoring has been working. And their effort is now differentiated. They are exceeding our expectations, and you can reward them. And there are different ways that you can reward team members. Everything isn't about compensation, even though that is one of the big ones, but there's career consequence. Where do they go? What can happen for them? Maybe they're moved into a new country. That's another way to reward performance. It's saying, we're going to give you this country and you can develop this team. We're giving you a brand new team and you can start, so there's promotion, there's compensation. There are different ways that we can reward our team members. And so we have to think about what is the performance, what is required in terms of a reward. What have they earned? What is the merit that is due to them? And that is if they're above average, and if they're at average or below average, what does that mean for team members as well? They need to know this, and I would suggest that they need to know this before rather than at the time of. The sooner they know what they're working towards, it rewards sweetens labor, so they may be more motivated to achieve this. And so these are the things that I'd like to talk to you about as it relates to performance management. So until next time, from us at the Influence Hub to your unlimited possibilities. Goodbye.